Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm 𝗶𝘀𝗁 𝗵𝗁. Welcome to 5 Things Not to Do During Mercury Retrograde. I'm the astrologer and artist of Mystick, Physick, Astrology, and I use Western sidereal astrology to help folks remember why they came, to reconnect with their soul purpose. And when I do like this one, my aim is always to provide guidance on how we can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to affect our lives in a positive way. So today we are going to talk about Mercury retrograde, what it is. We're going to talk about how it can affect you, how it can affect your business, what you can do to make it work for you, which is the most important thing to know, right? And who knows, in time, you may just find that you look forward to the 3 to 4 times a year that Mercury goes retrograde. Hi, Cindy. It's good to have you on. Hi, Jonna. Welcome to the broadcast. So first things first, Mercury retrograde. What the heck is it? So this is Mercury's apparent backward motion across the sky over a period of about 3.5 weeks or so. And I say apparent backward motion. This is an astronomical phenomenon. Mercury's not really going backwards. That would break the laws of physics, right? But from our vantage point here on Earth, it appears to be traveling backwards through the zodiac. And it's similar to when you pass a car on the freeway for a period of time. As you come abreast of the car, it kind of looks like the other car is traveling backwards, even though it's not, right? So it's the same phenomenon, basically. But from our vantage point here on Earth, Mercury appears to be backtracking through several degrees that he just transited. And what we find is that often things that first came up when he made his initial passage, will come up a second time. And often when that happens, something will need to be changed or corrected before we can move forward again. Hi, Jonna. Hi, Julie. Welcome. So Mercury retrograde can also trigger other disruptions, things like travel and communication disruptions. For instance, we're seeing some right now, the aviation delays because of the snowstorm, winter storms. We've had mail bombs in the last couple of weeks, and pets being shipped all over the world willy-nilly to the wrong places. So these are the types of things that Mercury retrograde is kind of known for and responsible for. But there's ways that you can kind of protect yourself and avoid or mitigate the risk of them. And I apologize, Penny. This is not the time to eat my plants, girl. Sorry about that, everyone. This is Penny. She's the troublemaker of the house. So if Mercury is your chart ruler, you tend to feel this more strongly. But for those lucky folks who are born with Mercury retrograde in their natal chart, they are going to feel right at home. But there are some recommendations around activities that you shouldn't do, that you should avoid if at all possible during Mercury retrograde, and then other activities which can be beneficial, which align well with the current astrological conditions. And so we're going to talk about both of those things today. So jumping right in, 5 things not to do during Mercury retrograde, if you can at all help it. So things that you begin under Mercury retrograde often end up being disappointing in some way later on. So maybe they don't turn out, or they fail to work the way that you expected, for instance, or you might find a better deal somewhere else after the fact. So it's important. These are the kinds of things that can come up. It is important not to make big ticket purchases. So don't buy valuables, things like expensive jewelry or appliances, electronics, automobiles. You want to put off those types of purchases right now. You want to avoid signing contracts or applying for anything. This includes loans and jobs, unless you're going back to work for an old employer or refinancing an existing arrangement, okay? And you don't want to start major projects or launch new initiatives either. So don't begin new business opportunities right now if you don't have to. Excuse me just one moment. My kitten has found her rattle toy, and I'm sure that's probably a little bit distracting. And if you don't mind, if she's not going to leave it alone, I might sneak over there and take it away from her. I apologize. Yeah, hold on just a moment. I'm going to grab this toy cat. I'll be right back. Thank you for that, for your patience. So as I was saying, you don't want to start major projects or launch new initiatives. You don't want to begin new business opportunities, including hiring new employees. Thanks, Debbie. It's her favorite toy, and she knows where the toy box is, and she just goes and helps herself when she wants to play, and it happens. My husband taught her to play fetch, and so she'll come tell you when it's time to play fetch. But yes, right now what you want to do is spend time finishing up things that have been left undone, okay? So this is a time for correcting mistakes. It's a time for adjusting your processes. It's time for tweaking your strategies. And it's time for tying up loose ends, okay? So there's some very positive ways that you can put Mercury retrograde to work for your business, okay? But let's talk first about how you can prepare. First thing, most important thing, probably above all, back up everything. Back up all your devices, back up all your hard drives, back up all your accounts that you need to back up, okay? Put your name and contact information on all of your valuables, your phone, your laptop, your luggage. I usually recommend using the shadow period for preparing in this way, because when you do that, you'll preempt most of the craziness by doing that. We're already through the initial shadow period of this retrograde, so I'm not going to go into detail about that, but I will tell you how you can find out more about the shadow period a little bit later on, if that's okay. But you want to prepare right now, and that includes backing up any critical information. You want to plan to read and reread and reread again any emails, any communication that you're going to be sending out in the coming 3 weeks. 3.5 weeks even. You can go longer than that. Personally, I tend to notice an increase in autocorrect mistakes. If I'm posting on social media or texting to someone, if I'm replying, I'll find that I hit send or submit just a little too soon, and there may have been an autocorrect mistake, and sometimes it'll take me like 5 or 6 different times to get all the errors edited out of a message or a post just to get back to my original meaning. So these are the kinds of things that can happen during Mercury retrograde. Usually we're distracted, we're in a hurry, so it can benefit us now to slow down, to double check our work. And this is a big reason why you don't want to sign anything, because you don't know if other people have double checked their work. So someone else could have made a mistake, and you don't want to have that affect you. But how can you use this time? So you can use this time instead to reduce, reuse, recycle, and repair. That's one way. So machines, appliances, automobiles, things like that, are much more likely to break down during a retrograde period, especially if there were pre-existing issues with them. The problem is that's a really bad time to have to replace those things. So if you know that something needs attention, be proactive. Have your fixes and your repairs done now rather than later, so that you can avoid putting yourself in a bind down the road, okay? De-stash and declutter projects and activities are also really favored in the coming 3 weeks. So do an inventory, check and see what you can move out, do an early yard sale or garage sale if you need to, have a de-stash event for your business, okay? You can also review and revise. These are excellent activities. It's a great time to update your website and do rebranding. So if that's something that you've been considering, but like I said, make all of your backups, okay, before you start, and triple read all of your copy, okay? You can use this time for things like evaluating your current positioning, for doing target market and demographic research. You can review any projects that you've had in process, I would say over the next previous month or even longer, and make revisions if necessary. So it's a great opportunity for that. Have a look at what's working in your business and what's working, so that you can make adjustments and develop a plan, so that going forward, once Mercury is direct, forward motion, you can do more of what's working in your business and less of what's not working, okay? And renegotiate. This is a wonderful time. If you're not happy with the current arrangement that you have for your business or even for your personal life, renegotiate the terms right now. Just wait to sign until Mercury is direct, okay? Reconnect and reward. So this is one of my favorite pieces of information for business owners during Mercury retrograde. Okay, so this is not a good time for client acquisition. So if you're trying to and new customers for your business, this isn't the best time for those activities. So instead, what I want you to do is follow up with your past customers and clients. Reach out to them and see what you can help them with right now. Okay, Debbie's saying she has to do inventory anyway, so it's a great time for that. It's a great time if you have to renew financials, if you have to do audits, things like that. But follow up with past customers, reconnect with them, do things that generate repeat business rather than focusing on client acquisition. Okay, have clearance sales. Wonderful thing that you can do. You can follow up with your clients and ask for testimonials. I would strongly recommend doing that. You can also do employee evaluations or any other kind of audit that your business needs. You can rehire former employees. You can go back to work for old bosses. I would just hesitate to hire new employees or to take a new job right now. Okay. Now, one of the best ways to use Mercury retrograde is to get some R&R. Okay. So take some time off, relax, get away. Travel can be one of those ways. And I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity to travel, go ahead and do it, but be sure to leave room in your travel schedule for possible delays, like what we're seeing now with the weather delays in the aviation industry. But leave room in your schedule for potential delays and double check all of your itineraries, all of your accommodations, all of your travel routes. Okay. But so you can see, you can kind of get the idea here. That business doesn't have to come to a complete stop during Mercury retrograde, right? So it's just important to be prepared, be aware, know that there may be postponements or detours or slowdowns, and be willing to be flexible around them. Delays of all kinds, are possible during Mercury retrograde, but generally speaking, you want to embrace them, okay? There's often a benefit to delays during Mercury retrograde. So remember that, if you're feeling impatient and something is slowing you down, just remember it's gonna work out for you, okay? But of course, life goes on, right? So sometimes you don't have a choice about something. In a lot of cases, there are other strategies that you can employ to either protect yourself or to mitigate risk when you have to do something that you might otherwise choose to postpone, okay? So what I did is I put together a guide called the Mercury Retrograde Survival Guide, your essential guide to surviving and thriving during Mercury retrograde. And in it, I detail my best tips for Mercury retrograde, including everything that you need to know about Mercury retrograde and the lesser known shadow period, which we mentioned earlier. So if you want to learn more about the shadow period, this is a great way to find out more about that. We go into how each Mercury retrograde will affect you personally and how you can best use it for your own benefit. And it'll go into options for navigating those don'ts, even when you just don't have any other choice. Okay, so it's a downloadable ebook. So I'll walk you through how to get a copy of your natal chart. So if you don't already have one, I'll show you how to get one for free. It'll walk you through how to identify the correct sign and house for any Mercury retrograde cycle. I'm going to show you how to do that if you don't already know. And in it, I include suggestions for how to put any retrograde to work for you, house by house, so that no matter where Mercury is retrograde in your chart, you'll have a plan for action. And this is a guide that you'll come back to again about 3 to 4 times a year. So if you normally dread Mercury retrograde, if you feel like that what can go wrong will go wrong, and that's just the way that Mercury retrograde is, this guide is for you. It's super easy to apply the principles, even if you're brand new to astrology, and it'll work for you no matter what zodiac you use. I mentioned earlier in the broadcast that I use the Western sidereal zodiac, and not a lot of folks are familiar with that. Doesn't matter. If you use the tropical zodiac, you can use this guide. So the link is and I'll paste this into the comments when the video is over, but if anyone wants to type it in now, that's great too. mystickphysick.com/retrograde guide. That's where you'll go. Okay. As a special offer just for this presentation, you can get a copy of the Mercury Retrograde Survival Guide for 20% off the regular cover price for the next 72 hours. Okay, so this guide is really going to help you transform the way that you experience Mercury retrograde cycles. It's going to leave you feeling more empowered and in charge, even when Mercury's up to his shenanigans, okay? So it's a really important, really valuable guide in that respect. I know that some of you here in Flourish have already bought this guide from me, and so if you want to let us know in the comments how the Mercury Retrograde Survival Guide has changed your experience of retrogrades, we'd love to hear from you if you have it and you want to share your experience. But before I forget, so I have a bonus tip. I'm glad you stayed on. So I have a bonus tip for how to know if this particular Mercury retrograde cycle is going to impact you directly. So what you want to do is check your natal chart for planets or personal points at 22 degrees Pisces if you use the sidereal zodiac. So if you're in my group, check 22 degrees Pisces. If you use the tropical zodiac, you'll want to check for planets or personal points at 17 degrees Aries. So this, for instance, is if you follow Susan Miller or if you follow Cheney Nicholas, you want to look at your chart for planets or personal points at 17 degrees Aries. And if you have either of these placements, you will probably be personally affected by the upcoming retrograde cycle. If you need to look up your natal chart, I have free calculators online at the website at mystickphysick.com/sidereal tools and mystickphysick.com/tropical tools. And I will post both those links in the comments for you when I jump off the live broadcast. But I want to thank you so much for joining me, and don't forget to grab your copy of the Mercury Retrograde Survival Guide because it'll go into much more detail and you'll be able to use it for every retrograde that we have throughout the year. So thank you so much for joining me live. Hi, Zuli. You want to be sure to watch the replay because you're just catching us at the very, very end. But we went over 5 things not to do during Mercury retrograde if you cannot all help it. We also went over some best practices for things that you do want to do because there are some activities that you can do, things that you can do for your business that will help you move forward even though we're kind of at a slow point for the next 3 weeks. Debbie says, I love catching your videos because it helps me learn. Thank you, Debbie. Because part of my goal is to help you learn so that you can understand better how to apply these principles in your own life. And I want to open it up now to questions. If there are any questions about the broadcast, about the guide, about Mercury retrograde, maybe we'll do a little bit of a recap here since Zuli just jumped on. So we're talking about 5 things to do while Mercury is retrograde, and the first is reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle. Okay, so stay away from bringing new stuff into your life and starting new projects, but go through closets, go through garages, de-stash, repair anything that needs repairs, review and revise agreements, update your websites and your branding, make changes to your social media strategy if you need to. That's a great thing to do, and renegotiate. Zuli says, hasn't it already started? It starts tomorrow, the next day. Now, one important thing to know that I didn't mention already is that when Mercury stations, when he's the day that he appears to be standing the most still, right at the beginning of the retrograde and right at the end, are the days when he's the most powerful and the most unpredictable. So those are days that you want to give some space to when you're making your plans, especially if you're traveling around those dates. That's why you're seeing a lot of stuff come up right now. But yes, the shadow period started about 10 days to 2 weeks ago. I'd have to check the date to tell you for sure, Zuli. We're just getting into the full retrograde over the next couple of days. But I was saying reconnect and reward. So this is a time to go back and do more business with customers that you've already worked with in the past. You can do employee evaluations. You can do any type of audit, clearance sales. Okay. It's also a good time to rest and relax. So if you just need to take some time away from your business and take a break from things, don't hesitate to do that. But like I said, if you're traveling, leave some space in your schedule in case delays or things like that come up. And Zuli says, so that could be why I've been kind of bummed out. It could very well be. And you can be more affected when Mercury is your chart ruler. For folks who have Virgo or Gemini, Sun or Rising, they can feel it more intensely. Or for people who Mercury is just a prominent planet in their natal chart, they're going to feel it more intensely too. And then, of course, like I said, check those 2 degrees. That was your bonus tip. Degrees Pisces by the sidereal zodiac, or 17 degrees tropical. Check your chart for planets or points at either of those degrees to see if you're going to be directly affected by the retrograde. And don't forget to get your copy of the Mercury Retrograde Survival Guide at mysticphysick.com/retrograde guide, and you're going to get 20% off of it for the next 72 hours. But thanks everyone for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Debbie says, fingers crossed I can get my ready to ship items out during this time. I have no idea about my natal chart. Amen on both points, because shipping anything that has travel can definitely have kinks come up during the retrograde, absolutely. But yes, I will post those links for you, Debbie, so that if you want to check your chart, you'll be able to get a free copy of your chart. But thanks everyone for joining me. It's been wonderful to have you, and I've enjoyed the presentation, and we will see you again next time. May the odds be ever in your favor.